Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host Kevin, and this week we're going to be doing the 1982 science fiction, action, horror classic Swamp Thing, directed by Wes Craven, starring Louis Jourdan, Ray Wise, and Adrienne Barbeau. For those of you guys joining us for the first time, each week we'll talk about a different B movie. You can send in your favorite scenes, favorite quotes, any questions or comments you have. You can reach me at our page on Facebook, The Original B Movie Club. You can reach me on our YouTube page, KD9575, and of course on Twitter at KD9575. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, and don't forget to click the like button on Facebook and tell a friend. Swamp Thing takes place in the swamp, as you might imagine. Secret agent, I guess is what she is. Adrienne Barbeau plays Alice Cable. She's there to assist this top secret science team down in the swamp. We don't know exactly what they're doing. They're creating some kind of formula that is supposed to merge plant DNA with vegetable DNA, which I guess the goal is that it'll make plants more aggressive so that they could survive in environments that plants normally couldn't survive. They talk about, vegetables growing in the middle of the Sahara Desert, things like that. So that's the goal. And as you might imagine, there are people who are not as scrupulous, who would love to get their hands on this formula, including the evil Anton Arcane, played by Louis Jourdan. So, Arcane's mercenary team invades the laboratory, kills everybody, tries to steal the formula. The scientist, the head scientist, played by Ray Wise, Alec Holland, he manages to get away with the formula, but not before it splashes all over him. He goes up in flames and falls into the swamp. We think he's dead as well. Adrienne Barbeau, she manages to hide out and escape before the mercenaries discover that she's missing, and they go after her. And up out of the swamp comes this crazy green vegetable man who fights off the evil mercenaries and rescues Alice Cable, takes her to safety. Over the course of the movie, I don't want to give everything away, but we discover Arcane wants the formula because he wants to take over the world. Hey, who doesn't? And we discover that that crazy swamp thing, as we start referring to it as, is secretly Alec Holland, back from the grave. He's been, his formula transformed into a crazy swamp thing. So there you go. Cable tries to get in touch with Washington to get help, but of course, the call gets rerouted, gets lost, and Arcane is able to capture her. He's not able to find the formula at first, because there's some missing books. Cable's hidden the books. Eventually he gets the books. There's a whole lot going on. I don't want to give everything away. I want you to be able to go and discover it yourself. There's a lot of interesting action scenes that go on during the course of this movie with the mercenaries shooting machine guns. So Swamp Thing is wandering around the swamp, kind of looking like Frankenstein. He doesn't say much throughout most of the movie. It isn't until later in the movie he starts talking through his mask, like one of those fake masks from Planet of the Apes where the mouths barely move. And we discover that it is, spoiler alert, it's Alec Holland. So there you go. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's a classic. As I said, it was directed by Wes Craven, who you might know has typically directed The Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, those kind of really serious horror movies from about that same time. He actually went ahead and directed this as a way to show the studios that he could direct more action type things. He wasn't just Mr. Horror. because for the most part, this is pretty tame. I mean, there's a lot of bullets getting shot, but really not too many people die in the course of this movie. I mean, especially when you compare it to like the Terminator, where people are dropping over every 5 minutes. So something to think about. Interesting fact about Wes Craven, which you may not know, he actually got his start directing adult films. I don't want to be much more specific than that. Some classics you may have heard of under an alias before he started doing his horror movies. So there you go. Adrienne Barbeau, she'd been in obviously a ton of different things. She got her big start like in Maude back in the 70s, that crazy sitcom, before she went on to do movies like The Fog, Escape from New York, other things, Cannonball Run. She was actually married to John Carpenter, who directed a lot of those other movies for quite a few years. Alec Holland, the scientist, was played by Ray Wise. You might remember him. He was in Twin Peaks. He was in RoboCop. Interesting thing, though, is he was originally also supposed to play the Swamp Thing character. But the stuntmen that they hired, who I guess fit the suit, looked just too different between Ray Wise in the suit and Dick Durock, who actually played the Swamp Thing. So they decided to go with the stuntman to play the Swamp Thing. So Ray Wise is literally in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then it's a totally different actor playing the Swamp Thing. So there you go. The movie was based upon a comic book from DC from back in the 70s. I mean, the basic plot points are from that comic book, but they kind of took their own little license, as you might imagine. They went ahead and took the basic Alec Holland character and the Swamp Thing and brought that over. So, in a way, the Swamp Thing lives in that same universe as like Batman and Superman and those kind of things. So there you go. So if you watch Batman Begins, if you look really close, there's a couple scenes. No, there isn't. There's no Swamp Thing in that movie. But look closely anyway. It's a good movie. What else can I tell you about this lovely film? It went on to spawn a sequel about 5 years later called The Return of the Swamp Thing that starred still Louis Jourdan and Heather Locklear. So there you go. It also spawned a TV series, Swamp Thing TV series on USA Network that lasted for quite a while. So there you go. Louis Jourdan, he was actually a serious actor, believe it or not, back in like the 60s. But by the time the late 70s, early 80s rolled around, he kind of was playing these kind of sketchy roles like Swamp Thing. He was also one of the villains in Octopussy, which I did a year ago. He played Kamal Khan in Octopussy, so there you go. This movie is highly enjoyable. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so go ahead and check that out if you have not already done so. It got a whopping 60% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know, 60% doesn't sound too good, but it's not like you're expecting Lawrence of Arabia, right? Okay. What's interesting though, on Netflix, the version that they're showing is like a European version for some reason. So all the credits are in French. They call it Le Monstre de Mer. I'm translating from French. I guess it means the Swamp Thing. So there you go. It's notable because there's like nudity in the European version. So there's about like 90 seconds that was cut out of the American version to make it a PG, and it was all just boobs. So there you go. If you want Swamp Thing with some boobs in it, check out Netflix, okay? But keep that in mind if you're planning on watching it with your young children. You may decide to. I don't know. So next week, I am going to go deeper into the horror genre. I opened it up to the members of the B Movie Club on Friday. Gave some suggestions, said, what do you guys think? And Steven came back and said, hey, have you done Killer Clowns from Outer Space? And I said, I have not. So guess what? Killer Clowns from Outer Space, kind of a horror comedy spoof. So check that out. It is also streaming instantly on Netflix. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Say hello to your boyfriend, baby. There it is. Thank you for joining us each week. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to like our page on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Thank you for joining us, and be well.